In 1969, over 50 years ago, the issue of racism was addressed at the Baha'i Youth for One World Conference in Willamette, Illinois. Today, the struggle continues. The fundamental solution to racial and ethnic conflict rests ultimately on the common recognition of the oneness of humankind. Achieving equality and true justice requires the transformation of a whole nation that ultimately depends on the initiative and change of character of the individuals who comprise it.
Individual differences. That is to say, the thing that attracted me was that Baha'u'llah talks specifically about black people. Abdul Baha specifically about black people. And also they talk about Indians, you see, about Eskimos. And I don't think that we can name any religion that's so emphasized the need for other religions, for other groups to come into the faith, not because the faith was paternalistic, but because the faith needed them.
The first national convention of Baha'i youth brought together 600 young people from all parts of America, plus visitors from Japan, Africa, Persia, and India, asking the age-old questions, finding answers in a new faith.
Well, I'm now serving as a medic in the Army at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I arrived at the position of serving my government in a 1AO capacity after agonizing over it for some time. And it's of course the official policy of the National Baha'i community that Baha'i youth, Baha'i young men, will accept non-combatant military training and service.
My experience in Vietnam is a sickening thing. It's a thing that tears the values of human life down.
I don't want any part of it. I'm opposed to the war. I'm opposed to the military establishment. I'm opposed to totalitarianism, and this is a totalitarian system, military. I resent it. I resent what it does to me and what it does to other people. I'm opposed to what it's doing in Vietnam, but it seems to me that to be obedient to the institutions of the faith, and in this case, it's very important because they're considering the long run in history.
As Baha'is, we believe prayer is awfully important. In fact, we believe it's essential. It is your communion with that force out there that controls all things. We call it God. God is a terribly misused word. God is dead, God is alive. The force that propels the universe, the atoms that make us up, the life force, seem to be very much alive.
Baha'u'llah says we must, through understanding our governments and participating as Baha'is, and yet not revolutionizing against the government, through the Baha'i order, we will establish this new world. It means at the time, however, it means at this present time, a certain amount of working under the yoke of our governments.
The Universal House of Justice tells us that this is the very heart of the age of transition, and that the old society is crumbling and falling down, and we're in the middle of it, and we can't help but be pulled by the things, in many directions, by the things that are going on.
This is the United States, and you have a white racist government. I wonder what would happen if we started appealing to black people to vote for their own black government, to govern their own black nation, to make treaties and alliances, to do their own civil construction, to turn inward the billions of dollars they spend in the white nation. Do you think that your government would allow us to do that?
As I listened to Mr. Bing and to Mr. Collier tonight, I said, what a pity there has not been one lie told up here tonight. And if it is bothering the Baha'is, white or black, I suggest that you do your thing. I'm working mine out by individual investigation of the truth, by individual prayer, and some other things. And this is something that you will have to do individually. We call it deepening. Recently, I received this horrible name of headmaster. We don't use that term in Harlem Prep. I'm the principal teacher, or I'm just plain CARP, C-A-R-P, an abbreviation of this name, Carpenter. And that's the way it is. Because the young men and young women that I am working with, and do you notice I did not say teaching? I am working with. represent many facets and organizations within that ghetto called Harlem. We have 5%ers, we have Muslims, we have Pan-Africanists, we have Garveyites, we have agnostics, we have Christians, and we have some black Jews. And you are not going to proselytize these young people, and you're not going to kid these young people. You're going to have to march through the front intellectual and spiritual door, or you don't stay.
Baha'is don't have missionaries as such because when they go to another country, they're not supported by the faith. We call them pioneers. And they go with the intention of living in that country, of learning the language, of settling down, of getting a job, hopefully of becoming permanent residents, even citizens if they wish to. And our whole approach is not one of conversion, but rather of trying to live as closely as possible the Baha'i precepts, the Baha'i teachings, and through your own life, attracting people to the Baha'i faith.
Well, what I can't understand is how you believe like in chastity before marriage and no drinking and no smoking and all those things. Haven't you read Freud or I mean doesn't it seem like a terrible constraint on things that are natural and beautiful in life?
The point is that, for instance, a friend of mine from Los Angeles was saying that some of the younger kids there, when they were at a Baha'i summer school or Baha'i gathering, would ask the adults in charge to tell them how far they could go and then, what they couldn't do. And this isn't the point at all. The point is that what is important to us is human relationships and the power of the mind. And anything which beclouds those relationships or gets in the way is to us bad. But it's only by virtue of the good thing. In other words, we're all in favor of being happy. It's just how you become happy that's important to us.
Yeah.
You see? Now, it's for this, or partly for this reason, that Baha'is don't drink. It's not because we're against what a lot of people argue drinking does, which is to be freer and more friendly and more natural. We're for that. But we think you can do that without having to drink.
Dr. Bird, do you still socialize with the same friends you were with before you became a Baha'i?
Oh, yes. It's interesting enough. They will say, well, we know what you want. And they'll get the ginger ale and the Coca-Cola. And we go to parties and we have the best of time. And they can't understand because we're not charged with anything but the spirit.
There is a change in relationships. And I find all my relationships much better today than I did 4 years ago. I find I have more friends today. I have more lasting relationships. I find myself liking people today. Each person I've come to find through the Baha'i faith has something to offer, whatever it is, no matter how little it is. There's this offering, and it's beautiful to me. And this is one of the things that held me back in the beginning. I had quite a bit of difficulty accepting the Baha'i faith because I couldn't understand something so simple and beautiful being true.
Of course, the whole brunt of Baha'i teachings is directed toward the establishment of world peace. And you will remember in the tablets of Baha'u'llah, for instance, in the tablets of the kings, there's a great deal that is said about universal peace, about the creation of a peaceful society.
I'm beginning to understand quite a bit more about this non-involvement in politics. Can you add anything to this, Jerry, that would enlighten me a bit more and give me more information on this?
Well, it's difficult. I think the basic difference between the Baha'i attitude on politics and the non-Baha'i attitude is the basic function of a Baha'i is to solve problems and leave his personality out of it.
The whole basis of politics is antagonism. Society divides itself into interest groups, into conflicting parties, and they struggle. And out of the struggle emerges the victory of one party over the other. Whereas in Baha'i life, even though we may start with positions which are far apart, every attempt is made to bring people together, to diminish the gap between them, so that at the end of the process of consultation and discussion, everyone is finally unified and the program is arrived at, which is then universal, which includes everyone, no winners, no losers, one single unified community.
We are all the fruits of one tree. We are all the waves of one sea. The day has come when all men must live as one. We are all the flowers of one garden and the waves of one sea and the leaves of one...
Hey, where are you from?
We're from South Carolina, California, Washington, and Arizona.
There's a new wind blowing.
We're the Lights Ii!
Makes you strong as a mountain, makes you move like the sea. One mankind. There's a new wind blowing. Peace of mind. Makes you strong as a mountain, makes you move like the sea. Then you fly like a bird to eternity. It sets you
Baha'i, a new faith for a new age, yet its roots are set deep in the past. To find them, one must turn to the birthplace of other prophets, other faiths. Baha'u'llah is a new prophet. Baha'i is a new faith. Yet this faith and this prophet are but the latest chapter in man's eternal search for a way to God.
In just over 160 years, the Baha'i faith has grown from an obscure movement in the Middle East to the second most widespread religion in the world, embracing people from more than 2,000 ethnic, racial, and tribal groups. Its unity challenges prevailing notions about human nature and our common future. Here in America, there are more than 150,000 Baha'is. They share a belief that peace can be established through unity and an appreciation for diversity. Across the country, Baha'is are putting this vision into action at the local level. They are partnering with their neighbors and bringing together people of all ages and backgrounds to create more vibrant, empowered communities. Baha'u'llah proclaimed the unity of religious truth which has unfolded over time through a succession of divine teachers. He taught that Abraham, Moses, Christ, and Muhammad were all messengers of God. Each brought to light religious and spiritual truths which propelled the evolution of civilization. Baha'i teachings also count Krishna, Buddha, and Zoroaster among the prophets of God. Baha'u'llah confirmed the oneness of humankind and stressed the need to eliminate prejudice of every kind.
When I was born, I was a petite little 6-pound baby who almost came out in the elevator going up to the delivery room at the hospital in Uppsala, Sweden. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was sort of hoping and expecting her birth to be very similar to mine. If anybody would have told me that my baby girl would be 8 pounds and take 35 hours to get out, I would have probably done anything in my mind to just figure out how to keep her in there somehow, forever. Now, a few more details. Out of those 35 hours, I was pushing for 5 hours, and she was crowning for an hour and a half. I can hear the women go, oh. Some of you men or you younger people may not know what that means, but it's a lot. Let's just leave it at that. And we had decided to do a home birth, so no drugs. That's a picture of me and my husband, Justin, in the birthing pool almost a year and a half ago now. If you believe what you see on TV, it would be easy to think that what got me through this birth was a lot of force and might and tension. The truth is that the reality was quite the opposite. The only things that got me through were surrender, patience, listening to my intuition, consciously making an effort to move out of my mind and into my heart and body. Now, as a woman, I've had a lot of experiences with those qualities in the past, but this was just on a different level. I got to experience firsthand just how powerful the feminine qualities are, and it blew my mind. And it made me wonder what else these qualities can do and what they can produce if we only know how to tap into them. Abdu'l-Baha spoke about how the world has been ruled by force and how man has dominated over woman by his more forceful qualities. But then he said that mental alertness, intuition, and the spiritual qualities of love and service in which woman is strong are gaining ascendancy. At first look, it may seem, when you look at the feminine qualities, that they are not really the kind of qualities that move things forward and make things happen and create tangible results. But then we look at this quote and we think about the example of birth again. There is no bigger achievement than birthing human life, and it is 100% in the hands of the feminine. That must mean something. That must be worth looking into. So let's do that. Let's start by breaking some things down and look at some feminine qualities that I've listed here. They are surrender, empathy, nurturing, tenderness, patience, and loving. Masculine qualities can be direction, focus, discipline, confidence, power, force. And when we look at this, and then look at the masculine or the power system that we've had for a very long time, we can see that it is very masculine in its qualities. If you look up the word power in the dictionary, it says that it means to accomplish, to control, the ability to act with strength, might, and force. Very masculine powers. And that's not a bad thing. The masculine power system has brought us tremendous blessings. It's brought the miracles of science and incredible businesses and industry. It's been a very brilliant strategy for many, many years. And for most of that time, the role of woman was to be a wife and a mother. And her feminine qualities like compassion and nurture and patience were put into the caretaking of family and the home. But then came the 60s. And there was an impulse in women to experience life on a larger scale, to be more than wives and mothers. And this allowed us to start businesses, to become politicians, to become leaders of organizations, and so on. It gave us a lot. It gave us a lot of power. However, it came at a price. Studies say that women have never been so unhappy. Because to get to that place, we had to suppress our true nature, our true feminine nature. And the thing is that we still have a long way to go before we have that. We still live in a man's world, and that world is suffering greatly. And I believe that we all deeply, men and women, that deep inside we long for love and peace and compassion, a supportive community, meaningful contribution, and a brighter future for the generations to come. And unfortunately, the masculine power system can't get us there. Not alone. I think we need to look at some of the obstacles on our path to creating something new, to redefine power. So one obstacle that we meet is the fact that the feminine is very often belittled and devalued. When I was still pregnant with Maya, Justin and I, my husband, we went to a housewarming party, and I was talking to a dad who was holding his newborn daughter in his arm, and I was sharing excitedly with him that we had decided to do a home birth and have no drugs. And he looked at me and he laughed. And he said, "No drugs? Yeah, right, you're gonna be begging for that epidural." And I was shocked and so angry. And I felt so dismissed and devalued, and I couldn't believe that he had such a lack of belief in what women are capable of doing. And it made me realize that it's not just men, it's people in general, and women have a lack of belief in what we are able to do. I reached out to some friends on Facebook to see if they had had similar experiences in life, and my inbox filled up really fast. And one friend, she said that she had been on a film set and she was getting really concerned about how some of the adults were misbehaving around the minors on set. So she shared this with the director, and he called her Miss Bunny Rabbits and Rainbows. And she too felt incredibly belittled and devalued when she was displaying her natural feminine qualities of compassion and sensitivity. Many other girlfriends, they said that they are often interrupted by men, they get mansplained. And many of my male friends said that they often get criticized for being too sensitive, and they're told to man up if they feel pain and they decide to share that. Being vulnerable as a man could be a beautiful thing, but it's most of the time interpreted as being weak. Another obstacle is the fact that many women have sacrificed their femininity to get to the top, and they still don't get to the very top. And I just want to say, I don't think there's anything wrong with a masculine woman. There is nothing wrong, unless that means that she is suppressing her true nature, which is incredibly unhealthy and also deprives the world of something that it desperately needs. But the thing is that most men are very comfortable in their man's world. And you put a woman in that world, no matter how masculine she is, they still feel that they can't really be who they want to be, and they can't do business the way that they want to do business. And I'm not saying all men, but the majority of men feel this way. There's a funny example of a friend of mine shared a story. Her friend is a studio executive. She's a woman. And she was in a meeting with all men. There were presidents and studio heads of this and that. And she was noticing how they would, to interrupt each other or to get each other's attention, they would punch each other on the shoulders and kind of just punch back and forth. And she thought to herself, I really have something to say, but I'm not going to punch somebody. So she awkwardly raised her arms and she said, "So I have something to add to the conversation, but I don't want to. I'm not going to punch you on the shoulder. So how about if I just sit here and wave my hands? Like, will that get me to speak?" And they just totally didn't get it, or they chose not to understand it. My point is that men tend to choose what they are comfortable with and what they are used to. And that means that most often than not, men get chosen over women. And let's be honest, let's say we had a room of women who had worked together forever and they had their way of doing things, and then all of a sudden a man comes in. I'm sure the women wouldn't greet him with open arms and say, "Yay, let's do this." It's a challenge because men and women are just wired so differently. And we need tools to understand how we can work together. So, what could be the solution? We know that we need to seriously question and redefine the way that we think of power. I don't have a lot of answers, to be honest. And if I did, I would need a lot more than 15 minutes. But I have 3 thoughts that have come up in spending some time with this topic. The first thing is, we must first be aware that there is a problem, right? And that's usually the first step in anything that we do. And it's really quite easy. It's like, you know, when you buy a car and you research this car and you're really excited about it, and then because you are so aware of the existence of this car, you start to see it everywhere. So I think in this case, we just need to slow down. We need to allow for quiet moments of reflection, for prayer, for meditation. Study the writings every day, because this will allow for a spiritual awareness, and it will make us see things that we never even saw before. And through that, I believe that that infiltrates the way that we behave, and then eventually the way that we think. The second thing is I think we need to get really clear on what feminine power is. Does it look like a group of half-naked women running down the street for an equality movement? Or does it look like a woman in a pantsuit punching shoulders in that conference room? Or could it be something in between the extremes that is powerful simply because it is our true nature? And what does it look like in our everyday activities for men and women? What does it mean to tap into our more magnetic, compassionate, patient qualities? And third is that I believe we need to find that balance. Abdu'l-Baha said that this next stage will be an age in which the masculine and feminine elements of civilization will be more evenly balanced. For us to redefine power, we need to access a broader appreciation for the different sources of power. We need to celebrate the differences while also finding a way for them to coexist. And we can't only focus on bringing women into the various arenas of the current social order. Men and women must strive together to build a new social order by drawing on these different sources of power. So, I invite you all, and notice I didn't say I challenge you to, I invite you to make space for the feminine. Realize that this is part of who we all are. And it's not to be weak, it's to be strong. Vulnerable, yes, but not incapable. And to my fellow women, we just need to stop downplaying our strengths and abilities. We need to dare to take up space, to sit at that table and speak up. You don't have to punch anybody. And trust your God-given abilities. And men, please embrace these qualities. Learn about how powerful they are. Celebrate them in your women. And don't forget that they are part of your very own fabric too. Thank you.